Welcome to Chronicles. We're in chapter 7 today, and we're going to pick it up in verse 14. Again, Jesus called the crowd to him and said, "Listen to me, everyone, and understand this. Nothing outside a person can defile them by going into them. Rather, it is what comes out of a person that defiles them." After he had left the crowd and entered the house, his disciples asked him about this parable. "Are you so dull?" he asked. "Don't you see that nothing that enters a person from the outside can defile them? For it doesn't go into their heart, but into their stomach, and then out of their body." In saying this, Jesus declared all foods clean. He went on, "What comes out of a person is what defiles them. For it is from within a person's heart that evil thoughts come: sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander, arrogance, and folly. All these evils come from inside and defile a person." Yeah, this is a big one, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Jesus, he's just finished railing against the hypocrisy of the Pharisees because of their worship in vain, right? They're all about the outward. They're all about what you look like. Yeah. And Jesus has just finished calling them hypocrites, and then he calls the crowd to him and takes this opportunity to teach them what it's all really about. And it's not. It's and these people. I mean, it must have been quite a shocking statement, this, because they've grown up going to the temple. They've grown up not being able to eat certain things because it makes them unclean. And here comes Jesus and says it was never about the outward. It was always about the heart. And, it's amazing, isn't it?
It is. And to the disciples and to this religious community, this would have been really radical teaching because for as long as they had been alive, their traditions and their ancestors would have tried to follow these laws, dietary laws, in order to keep them clean. And that today in lots of religions is still a huge thing. So a friend of mine used to live with some Muslims, and they were very, very careful about what they ate and what they shouldn't eat. And I remember once he told me that they'd ordered a pizza from a pizza shop and they'd asked for it vegetarian, but they'd accidentally put a little bit of that cube's ham. Right. And Muslims don't eat pork. Yeah. And when the chap realised he'd only had a tiny little bit, but he went to the toilet and made himself sick to throw up this, because he was so worried that little bit of pork would defile him. Yeah. And so that is the kind of attitude that lots of them would have had towards food. To us, it might seem like a bit of a small thing, but actually it was huge. And yet Jesus is saying, as you pointed out, that what those laws were always about and what it's really about is the heart. Is the heart.
And like he says, verse 15, nothing outside a person can defile them by going into them. Rather, it's what comes out of a person. So he wants to say, look, don't be so upset about. If you really want to know where your sin comes from, it doesn't come from your food. No, it comes from your heart. So it's out of the heart that all this big list of sins come at the end.
Yeah, and he's saying to the crowd and disciples, are you so dull? Do you not understand this? Do you really think that the living God is utterly consumed by whether you've had a little bit of this food or that food? Are those laws not representative of a bigger thing, which is the condition of your heart before God? Because in the Old Testament, this is one of the things the prophets really attacked as well, was this idea that you could just superficially keep the law, that you could go through with the religious festivals but actually be departing from the Lord in your heart. That wasn't going to, God's not going to be fooled by just a really nice, strict diet. It's always been about the heart. The heart is where the sin problem is. Yeah. The heart is what defiles you, and the heart is what needs to be cleansed. Yeah. Irrespective of what you're eating, really. Yeah.
I mean, and then I mean, if you think about it, that's where the gospel goes, isn't it? That's where that's why Jesus goes finally to the cross. Is to deal with our heart problem and our sin problem. He goes and he dies on the cross, and he becomes a sacrifice for us, so that we can, have all these. I mean, all these things are in our hearts. All these, and we know that because we know what comes out of our mouth.
Yeah.
And they don't get there by what we eat. It's in us already.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is like, you load up any news page, and this is what goes on in the world, isn't it? And it goes on. The reason it goes on in the world is because it goes on in our hearts. And this is just what we're like. And this is a radical thing Jesus is saying, because basically, by default, most of us are like the Pharisees in that we believe that we are essentially, in essence, good people. And that the way to please God is not radical heart surgery, it's to just comply with outward laws.
And actually, maybe even coming to church is a way that we sort of try and manage that. So we know, we get a little bit of God, to sort of top up just in case. But actually, we don't necessarily deal with the big problem. I'm not a sinner. I've got God. But actually, if you really know Jesus, if you really do have God, you will know that, like Paul, you're the chief of sinners. So don't be deceived.
I think that is right, and I think that is the difference between the gospel and all other world religion. All other world religion really says that you are essentially an okay person, but there are a load of hoops you need to jump through. The gospel says you are essentially a wicked person. Although made in the image of God, you are a wicked person, and you need to be redeemed by Christ. Your heart is the thing that needs to be cleansed, and that is tough for us to take because things like diet and religious activity is very attractive because it allows us to monitor and regulate our own progress. But if this is a heart work, then we can't measure our religion in that way. It's going to be about where are our hearts before the Lord. And we need Him to cleanse us. And so I think that's the challenge for us. By default we are religious people. We think that we can impress God and that we're good people, but we need to realise what Jesus says here, that our hearts are wicked. These little wasps are coming out of the nest all the time, and Jesus is the only one who can make us clean.